My sophomore year in high school. At the time, I didn't love high school a ton. I didn't hate it though either. I thought there were good things to it, bad things to it. You know, I feel like it's just generally a stressful time in life. But right before my sophomore year of high school started, we ended up getting our schedule. And I don't know how other people's high schools work or whatever, but in our high school, we didn't get to choose our schedule. There were certain classes we were required to take, and the school would pick which teachers you got. So for one class, you may have a really good teacher, and then you may have a really bad teacher. You don't get to choose which one you get. It's just a flip of a coin, whether you get the really bad one or the good one. Now at the time, I was supposed to take a class called World History. And this is one of those classes where we were in the exact situation. There was a really good teacher and there was a really bad teacher. I got picked the very bad teacher. However, our class in general was kind of stacked. Some good people in there. You know, I wasn't friends with all of them, but like, you know, everyone kind of knows each other a little bit. However, right before our class starts, it turns out that our really bad teacher ended up getting personal issues or something going on, and she wasn't able to teach for the entire year. She basically just stepped down for a year. So in came the substitute. We called him a long-term sub. We'll call him Mr. Kerr. Mr. Kerr was an interesting guy. I don't really know how I would even explain him. He could be oblivious at times. He was about yay tall, maybe 6'2", kind of a tall guy. He probably used to be very attractive, but he wasn't. He was kind of older. I'd say maybe 50s. Still had some good color in his hair. He had the most typical black haircut you could have. I don't want to say any name. The guy who led Germany in World War II, he had a similar haircut to that guy. Not the mustache. Wore a nice business casual fit to school every day. A nice stand-up guy, and he was a nice guy, but Mr. McCurry, he's just oblivious at times. He didn't really know what was going on. You could tell he's one of those teachers who was teaching world history, but like he just looked up everything he was going to tell you right before class started. Ready? One tap. Oh, I almost got it. Because of Mr. McCurry's lackluster hearing and his kind of just oblivious mindset in general, a lot of the students in our class ended up kind of taking advantage of him. And look, I don't endorse any of this behavior. You should never do any of this that I'm about to tell you, but like, it kind of is a good story. I'm not gonna, because while I should mention this is world history, right? It's on-level world history. It's not like AP or honors or any of like the higher up. It's like the lowest level class you could take. Basic world history. And the reason I mention that is because the people in this class are not the most intelligent people in the school. And now going into this class on the first day, first week or whatever, we're expecting a really strict teacher. We've heard horror stories about this teacher, and then we find out we have a long-term sub, and he just, I mean, he's kind of chill too. Like, he didn't really care. Like, if we were talking while he was talking, you know, we could kind of whisper to each other. I ended up grinding Clash Royale a lot of the time. And then naturally, as you know, high school is, people started to push the boundaries a little bit. And by push the boundaries, I mean, wow. On our very first test day, our Unit 1 test, one kid in our class, we'll call him Joe, once we had all gathered in the class and we were waiting for Mr. McCurry to come in, I don't know if he was in the bathroom or he's talking to another teacher or something, he ended up going through his desk, finding the test answer key, taking pictures of it, putting it back in the desk, and then sent it to the entire class on Snapchat. And this ended up sparking a group chat that our class would have on Snapchat for the entire next few months. It started with simple stuff. People were secretly sneaking a picture of him, so maybe he dropped something and everyone just like zooms in, like just click, 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 you know, sends it to the group chat. They'd put filters on his butt. They'd Photoshop his butt into a face. They'd Photoshop his butt into a face so that Snapchat thinks it's a face, and then they'd Photoshop like the doggy emoji ears on. And it slowly progressed more and more and more. Every single test, the one kid, Joe, he went through his desk, found the test answers, and sent it to everybody. At first, it was, you know, people were being secretive about it. They take the test, but act like they're doing it for real. Maybe turn it in after 40 minutes, like, oh, I worked really hard on this and whatever. But eventually people, especially like Joe, they would literally, on our Unit 3 test, this guy turned his test in 30 seconds. He answered every single question, turned it in. There's not even any point in doing that because he now has to sit in the class for 49 minutes and just wait for the bell to ring. And you think Mr. McCurd might be suspicious that, you know, Joe turned his test in literally 30 seconds, got every single question right. But this guy was just, he was just straight up confused. I was like, wow, how did you do this? He'd just look at Joe and be like, are you sure you're done? And Joe would be like, yep, that was pretty easy. Mr. McCurd would be like, all right. But that was kind of the breaking point in our class where things went from, you know, just taking pictures of his butt, like normal high school stuff. I mean, that's kind of aggressive. Because once everyone in the class realized that he just didn't like care about anything, that's when things started heating up quite a bit. And it always got really bad when he turned around to write on the board. Because he'd turn around, right? And he'd start writing, slightly bent over a little bit. And he's a slow writer, so he's taking his time, you know, writing on the board. Atrocious handwriting. No one could read anything he was saying. But it was like a scene out of a movie. As soon as he would turn around and start writing on the board, people would crumble up pieces of paper and have a snowball fight right behind him. Our class was angled in the way that there's the whiteboard out in front, right? And he's writing on the board. And then there's a bunch of rows of seats here. And there's a bunch of rows of seats here. You basically have the class split into two different teams. And they just have a freaking snowball fight. And then people start throwing pencils and just like chucking random things at each other. We're getting stabbed by pencils, like bleeding. And next thing you know, Mr. McCurd goes and writes on the board. Joe ends up running to the front of the classroom, pulls his pants down all the way to the ground. Everything was hanging, and just straight up bends over and touches his toes. But I can't just skip over this one because it wasn't just a quick thing either. Mr. McCurd takes his time writing on the board, right? And he just doesn't, like, it's like his brain just turns off when he's doing this. I don't know what's going on in his head, but so we're looking at this for a solid 3-4 seconds, okay? Like, it's in my brain. Like, you know, everyone in the class is just looking for like 1, 2, 3. And then he sprints back to his seat. The whole class ends up, erupting in laughter and just like yelling and everything. Miss McCurdy slowly turns around. What's going on? Oh, nothing, Miss McCurdy. No, we're all chill. We're just, having a good time back here. All right, you make sure you're settled down now. Okay, Miss McCurdy, we'll be good. It was like a scene out of a movie. And don't even get me started on the penis game. I'm sure some of you heard of this game. Some of you may have even played this game. It's a game where 2, 3, whatever group of people end up just taking turns saying the word penis, and every time someone says the word, the next person has to say the word even louder, and it continues in a progression until somebody just gets caught. This game would be played, I kid you not, every single day of our class. It was like a sanctioned event. Everyone knew that when the clock hit 3, that's when the penis game was going to start, and it was competitive. When I tell you, people like Joe and other kids in the class, they would scream this word so loud, the literal top of their lungs, and Mr. McCurdy would hear it like half the time. He'd turn around from writing on the board and say, Who did that? It's not like he was an old guy, he was like 50s, he's black hair, no gray hair, he doesn't look that old. He's just kind of slow. It happened so many times that teachers from the other classrooms had to come into our classroom and tell us to stop while Mr. McCurdy was the teacher. On the bright side, at least we all got A's. 100s, actually. He eventually just disappeared one day, and someone else came in. I wonder why. I wonder where he is now.